Welcome to BW Healthcare World. Today, let's speak about HPV vaccination. To talk about this, I have with me Dr. Sai Lakshmi Daayana, who is a gynecological oncologist working at the Apollo Hospitals, Hyderabad. With 18 years of experience in her field, her special interests include Worthen's hysterectomy, lymph node sampling, robotic hysterectomy, fertility sparing cancer treatment. Let's talk to Dr. Diana about HPV and what all we need to know about it. Welcome, Dr. Sai, to BW Healthcare World. Today, we're talking about HPV vaccine. Now, when we talk about HPV, what is the layman's perspective? Because a lot of people that we came across do not exactly know what HPV is and where is the need for this vaccine?
Look, Harbinder ji, when we talk about cancers, there are so many reasons why cancers can happen to people. Yeah, so some cancers happen because we get infections, some cancers happen because of lifestyle changes, some cancers happen for absolutely no good reason. But unfortunately, HPV associated cancers happen due to physical intimacy. So if you relate it to cancers happening due to smoking or alcohol, there's not many of us who actually, smoke a lot or drink a lot of alcohol. And those are things which we could give up or actually never actually get into the habit of. But getting HPV associated cancers is akin to someone saying anybody who eats food can get this cancer, or anybody who goes to bed, who sleeps, can get this cancer. Because if you think about it, physical intimacy doesn't need to be actually sexual. The act of sexual intercourse, even physically being intimate with somebody, can give you HPV associated cancers. And so 1 in 20 people who are physically intimate with another person, same sex or opposite sex, can get HPV associated cancer. So if you look at it that way, if you put it that way, then almost every human is at risk of HPV associated cancer. Because basic to all humans and animals is eating, sleeping, and being physically intimate at a certain age. So that is a burden of this cancer. So you don't need to do anything. You just need to be a normal human being to get HPV associated cancer. And that is why the common person should know that it's nothing to do with them. It's nothing bad they have done. And even if they lead a very good lifestyle, just because at a certain age they became physically intimate with another person, they are at risk of cancer. And that is why we need to prevent this cancer at the beginning stages, and we need to vaccinate our children. This is the motto which we should spread across, that just by being a normal human, this cancer can happen.
That's a very important aspect that you've kind of brought to notice, because I think this is something that gets unnoticed when we talk about cancers. Now, when we're talking of HPV, what are the kind of cancers that can be prevented by using an HPV vaccine?
HPV associated cancers typically affect those body parts where physical intimacy happens. So the commonest cancer we are seeing is cancer of the lower part of the uterus, which happens to women because that is where the penetrative sex touches the woman inside her body. Additionally, we are also seeing cancers of the genital tract in a woman. So below the cervix, there is the vagina and the outer lips of the entrance to the vagina. So these three cancers of the vulva, vagina, and cervix are 99% of the times due to HPV virus. In the man, we see cancer of the penis because of HPV. But we all know that HPV doesn't necessarily only enter your body during penetrative sex. Kissing or oral sex or anal sex can also spread HPV. And this is a worrying thing because many young people, teenagers, they don't necessarily engage in full sexual activity, but they get into kissing and cuddling, and even that can spread HPV. So cancers of the mouth, cancers of the throat, cancers of the voice box, and cancers of the pharynx, which is the back end of the throat. These are all due to HPV. And for those people engaging in anal intercourse, homosexuals or heterosexuals or bisexuals, 90% of anal cancers, which is a cancer of the lower part of the intestinal tract or the 6 centimeters above the anal opening, are also due to HPV. So these are all the cancers which can be caused due to HPV. Additionally, certain skin problems, what we call warts, which are itchy lesions which women get on their genitals following sexual intercourse or physical intimacy, again is due to HPV. So there is a lot of burden. We believe 5% of all cancers that are happening in the world to human beings are due to HPV.
And Dr. Sai, can the HPV vaccine be administered to all genders? And at what ages is it ideal to take this vaccine?
HPV vaccine should be given to anybody who can get HPV infection. So basically, all boys and all girls should receive the vaccine. But if you think in whom is it more dangerous? If you had to limit the vaccine, if you had a limited supply, or if you had limited amount of money and you had to choose between boys and girls, then we know that cancer of the cervix, which is a lower part of the uterus, is far more common and dangerous than cancer of the penis. Simply because if a man starts to get a precancerous lesion on the penis, he will know. He will know that there is a red or a white patch which is being itchy, which is bothering him. So he'll go to the doctor. While a girl who gets a similar patch in her cervix is deep inside her body and she won't ever know about it. That is why we see more cancers of the cervix. So if you were to limit it to one gender, the girls would benefit it more than the boys. But if you had the option, if there was no lack of resources or lack of vaccine, then please give it to all young young adults or teenagers or children between the ages of 9 and 12.
And is there a specific dosage for this vaccine? Is it number of doses that is a thumb rule or something?
The sooner you give it, the better. So we say if you give it before the child hits 15, 2 vaccines are enough. And both those vaccines should be given within 12 months. But ideally, at least 6 months apart. So you give one vaccine now and one between 6 to 12 months, the child is fully protected. But if the child crosses 15, as the person gets older, they start to accumulate more HPV viruses into them and their immune system is altered. So any child who's more than 15, we advise 3 doses, all 3 to be given within a span of 6 months.
And Dr. Sai, are there people who should not be given an HPV vaccine? Are there certain conditions in people that restricts the dosage of HPV?
To be honest, no. There is absolutely nobody who should not be given the HPV vaccine. We say in pregnancy, do not give it, but accidentally you didn't know and you gave it, even then it's absolutely okay. We don't need to get too worked up about it. So it is safe. But if someone is allergic to yeast, which is a very uncommon allergy because yeast is there in bread, yeast is there in almost half the curd, yeast is there in almost every fermented food product. So if someone is genuinely allergic to yeast, it's very unlikely that they have survived up to the age of receiving the vaccine. So yes, if someone is allergic to yeast, which is almost unheard of, then we advise them not to take the vaccine. And if someone after the first dose developed a very severe reaction and you didn't know why it happened, then yes, again, you say don't give them the second dose or the third dose. But otherwise, everybody can take, including people who are immunocompromised, who are cancer patients, etc.
And Dr. Sai, does the HPV vaccine offer benefits even if it is taken when the person is already sexually active? Or is it important to just give it before the person becomes sexually active?
Look, after the person becomes sexually active, they most probably have some kind of HPV because we know the studies have clearly shown that every sexually active person or person who has been physically intimate with another human being will have some kind of HPV, given there are 200 types of HPV. But does this person have a high risk type or a low risk type? We won't know. So yes, there is some benefit in taking the vaccine even after the person is sexually active. But if the person by then has accumulated a lot of HPVs, then maybe the vaccine will do nothing at all, no benefit at all. So the vaccine might help, but it will not do any harm to those people who take it after they have been sexually active. But then if this person say for example, me, I already have 16 types of HPV accumulated during my lifetime, and I've taken the vaccine, and the vaccine did no benefit to me at all because I'm already HPV positive, I still will continue to live in the false reassurance that I've taken the vaccine and I'm safe. So giving it to sexually active people might make them feel good when they actually don't need to feel good because it hasn't done any benefit. But will it do any harm? Say someone is HPV positive, they didn't know about it, and they took the vaccine. Will it do any harm? It won't do any harm. So yes, they can take it, but we feel that one, why give it to somebody in whom it might not work, and why take away a vaccine from the market when a child could have got it? And two, why give false reassurance to this person? And this person might neglect their health thinking, I've taken the vaccine, so I'm safe, and they actually are not. So that is why we don't like to give the vaccine to anybody who is more than 26, knowing that by that age, people do gather HPVs and the vaccine might not work for them.
Right. If I just read between the lines, what you're saying is that if you've not taken a vaccine, you may be probably carrying some level of HPV already. Does that mean that everyone carries HPV and there are certain HPVs which may not be fatal or which may not be affecting you every day?
Of the 200 types, so far they have typed 200 types of HPV. Maybe there are more, but we don't know. And of these 200 types, about 18 types are considered high risk, which can cause cancers. So the other 180 types are low risk, and we all have them. So many of our skin problems are due to HPV. So we do carry HPV on us. All of us will be positive for some kind of HPV, but not the high risk types.
Dr. Saib, are there any kind of common side effects that you have observed post administering the vaccine?
Gardasil and Cervarix are the two brands we have had thus far for the past 15 to 17 years. And they haven't actually observed any particular side effect which should be mentioned in the literature, other than the fact that someone looks at a needle and freaks out or gets a little bit of redness at the injection site and so on. There haven't actually been any major health risks or any deaths attributed to the vaccine. So it's considered to be one of the safest vaccines. But the new Indian vaccine, Servovac, it's gone through all the trials and testimonials, and it's meant to be very similar to the two American brands, but it's relatively new in the market.
And has this also brought down the cost of the vaccine?
Harbinder ji, I was a bit disappointed when a rep came to Apollo the other day and said it's 2,000 per dose. I mean, the Indian vaccine, and I was expecting it to be lower, but then that is being sold in a corporate hospital where most affordable sector come for healthcare. So when it comes to vaccinating the rest of the Indian children who can't afford 2,000 per dose, I'm seriously hoping government will subsidize it and give it for lower than what they're selling in a corporate setup. But if you would, I felt that, if I were to vaccinate my child, and the American brand, which has been in the market for 17 years, is selling it for 3,600, and an extremely similar new product made in India is being sold for 2,000, I'd probably still go for the American brand.
Based on the trust in the past experience, the number of years
it's been given for such a long time across so many continents, with millions and billions of people having already received it. So if India wants to sell Servovac, I think they need to lower the price, because the only enticing factor about it is the price.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And Dr. Sai, How can women protect themselves from cervical cancer if they're not in the eligible vaccination age?
Harbinderji, we have had pap smear for a very long time. In fact, for more than 50, 60 years, women have been advised to undergo a pap smear every 3 years. And that is still there for a very affordable price. It doesn't even cost more than 1,200, 1,300 rupees. And it's only once every 3 years. So the vaccination will never eliminate the pap smear, and it should never eliminate the pap smear. And it's only once every 3 years. And a pap smear will stop. It's 99% sensitive if done in a good lab. So
And,
no woman should worry about getting cervical cancer as long as she goes for a regular pap smear every 3 years.
and at what age should a woman start going for pap smear? I mean, because if it's a different case if somebody has some symptoms or you have, the scare or the fear of having cervical cancer. But for somebody who's asymptomatic, what would be the right age when they should start going in for this test?
Look, to make it easy for people, UK government says from the age of 25. USA says from the age of 20. And actually, the correct answer is from 3 years after the onset of sexual debut.
Okay.
And it's a tricky question asking a woman when her sexual debut was, because she might not want to tell everybody when it happened. So we say in India, people say 3 years after the onset of sexual debut, or we basically say from 3 years after you get married, you can start having pap smears. Well, you might see many 25-year-olds who are still virgins and who are not eligible for a pap test. So the correct answer is 3 years after the onset of sexual activity, we advise a woman to start to have pap smear, because it takes almost 3 years for the HPV virus to show itself on the cervix. It's such a slow-growing virus. So the correct answer is 3 years after the onset of sexual debut, which is what we apply in India, because in India, in UK, they assume everybody who is 25 would have been sexually active by then. And in USA, they think by 20, most women are. But in India, you can't apply that rule. So here we say 3 years after marriage or 3 years after sexual debut.
I mean, one thing that very clearly emerges from your earlier answer is that women may not want to, talk about when they became sexually active, and keeping in today's day and age when a lot of women are not getting married until a very late age. So, what are the reluctancies and the misconceptions that you have observed in your experience?
One, calling it cancer vaccine. People don't want to get their children anywhere close to anything near the word cancer. And I've had some women say, why is this cancer vaccine being given to my child? Why do you think my child is at risk of cancer? So one. And two, when we say this cancer protects children from any sexually transmitted infections, again, they don't want their child to get it, because they think, why do you think my child will get sexually transmitted infections? So associating a health screen or a preventative vaccine for sexually transmitted infections or STI associated cancers is something which sometimes people don't want to accept. They don't want to accept that their child might get an STI which can then lead to cancer, or it could be they themselves. So,
Right.
I mean, when I want my patient to have a pap smear, and then they're like, okay, what is it? Why do you want me to have it? And then I tell them that sex can make you have an infection, and that infection can make you have a cancer. They're like, no, I'm not like that. I won't get it. Without for once understanding that you can be in a very monogamous relationship with only one person all your life and still get a high risk HPV, which can then cause cancer.
Got it. Now, what I understand is that HPV is something that requires a lot of advocacy and a lot of awareness. And, I keep talking about this in various platforms that, there are these three pillars on which the healthcare really works. One is the accessibility, second is the affordability, and third is the quality. Anything that we do, whether it's hospital infrastructure, pharma, healthcare, tech, it is solving one of the three problems. Now, how can the government and healthcare institutions work on increasing this awareness, work on creating affordability in this HPV vaccines, and also make it accessible to not just the urban part of India, but to go into the interiors, because this sounds like a very human kind of a thing, and which means that anybody anywhere in the world is prone to being exposed to HPV.
I think they should put it across like every girl and every boy needs it. You know, how the hepatitis vaccine, the newborn child is given hepatitis vaccine. It's given to protect the child from liver cancer.
Yeah.
How many of us actually know the fact? We just know that a newborn needs vaccination. We never question ourselves or the doctor about why, what is it that it's protecting my child from. It's just entered into our system, impregnated into our system. Even a beggar who has a newborn child will go to a government hospital and get the vaccines because it's an in thing. You know, you have to do it. It's kind of a rule. And I feel even the government should put it across to every parent in the country that if you have a child or a boy or a girl, by the time they hit puberty, for a girl, there is a clear definition of puberty, which is a menarche. You know, by the time she gets her first menstrual period, this vaccine should be given to her. So when she grows into an adult, she won't get certain illnesses, whatever the illnesses they are. You know, we don't need to elaborate that if she has oral sex, it will protect her from laryngeal cancer. There is no need to be too elaborate about it unless a parent is asking all these elaborate questions. That by the time child hits puberty, this vaccine is a must. And it should only be given between those ages where the puberty is about to happen in a year or two. And for those people who want to know more, we can give them more information. So, you
Do
know,
you
this
think
is every child you think will eventually get into physically intimate position at some time point in their life. So I think the message should go across to them that by the time puberty hits the child deserves this vaccine.
do you think, in your opinion, it should be mandated by the government?
It should be mandated by the government. And for those people who refuse it, they need to come and talk to the doctor about why they're refusing. What is their valid reason? Is it lack of understanding, or is it lack of funding, or is there any other reason? And then at that point, we should try and educate.
Yeah. Dr. Sai, speaking to you about HPV vaccine uh, brings out the message loud and clear that, one, if you are born as a human, you are exposed to possibility of developing HPV. So vaccination is a must, and it should not be restricted to just the urban areas. We have to figure out how we as healthcare institutions, government institutions, can make it accessible and affordable to every person in the country. And if it can be mandated, it could actually reduce the healthcare burden on the country. And
Significantly. Yeah.
yeah, we've very clearly understood in the last couple of years that if we reduce the healthcare burden on the country, it is directly going to impact the economy as well. So I really thank you for taking out time to be with us on BW Healthcare World to speak on HPV and the vaccine.
Thank you. Thank you, Harbinder ji.